Hey there, I'm Jim, and today we're cutting straight to something most people won't say out loud. Avoidants don't fear love, they leave when you don't stand strong in who you are. Sounds contradictory, right? Avoidants are known for pulling away, dodging intimacy, shutting down emotionally. But here's the truth, they don't run from everyone. In fact, many avoidants stay and even become more secure when they're with someone who knows how to communicate, set boundaries, and hold their ground with clarity and calm strength. In this video, I'll share a real-life story of a dismissive avoidant woman who used to sabotage every relationship until she met a man who didn't beg, didn't chase, but who gently and consistently called her forward into connection and accountability. And the best part, you can learn to do the same, not to hold on to someone, but to stop losing yourself in love. If you're exhausted from walking on eggshells, constantly decoding mixed signals, or shrinking yourself just to feel close, this video is for you. Stick around until the end. I'll show you how to become clear, compelling, and unshakable, even when faced with someone emotionally unavailable. And if this message resonates, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this healing, eye-opening series on attachment, connection, and self-worth. When we talk about avoidance, we often think of labels like the cold one, the non-committer, or the person who leaves just when you start to trust. But the deeper truth, and one that's rarely discussed, is this: avoidants are not immune to love. They just respond to it differently. Their instinct to run isn't because they can't feel affection. It's because deep emotional connection triggers protective mechanisms they develop to survive early emotional wounds. For them, love isn't just intimacy, it's a potential threat. It's where they might get hurt, feel dependent, or lose their sense of freedom. And if they've never learned how to distinguish between safe and painful attachment, they'll flee not from you, but from the intensity of their own emotions. But that doesn't mean they're incapable of long-term love. In fact, many avoidants do enter committed relationships and slowly become more secure. The difference lies in who they're with. Someone who doesn't get pulled into the emotional distance, doesn't panic, doesn't self-abandon to keep love, but instead stands firmly in their own value and emotional clarity. This kind of person doesn't demand feelings from the avoidant, but they also don't tolerate prolonged emotional absence. They understand that avoidants need time, but time must come with effort. They can calmly say, "I care about you, and I'm willing to be patient, but I also need to know you're moving toward me." That combination of compassion and boundaries is what creates space for the avoidant to grow emotionally without making them feel cornered. The reality is, avoidants don't leave relationships where they feel respected, given space, and gently guided. They leave when they feel out of control, judged, or threatened. But if you can create a space where they feel safe and still held accountable, they'll not only stay, they'll evolve. But to truly understand how this works in real life, let me share a story with you. One that I remember vividly because it's living proof that an avoidant can stay when they're met the right way. Her name was Rachel, a beautiful, intelligent woman with a stable career. But when it came to relationships, she kept finding herself stuck in a draining pattern. Meet someone, feel a connection, and then panic. Just as things began to deepen, Rachel would start pulling away. She'd nitpick, see flaws in the other person, feel suffocated for no clear reason. Then she'd create distance, go cold, and end it only to feel regret, confusion, and emptiness later. Rachel knew this. She had asked herself more than once, why do I sabotage the very relationships I care about most? And then she met David and things started to shift. Not because David was perfect, but because he was secure. David had that grounded energy, the kind of presence that made you breathe easier around him. He didn't overreact, didn't control, but he also didn't shrink himself to keep the peace. As the relationship began to move forward, defining the relationship, talking about the future, even mentioning living together, Rachel felt her old fear rise again. She went quiet, avoided the conversation, and felt the familiar urge to flee. But David didn't let that silence follow the same old script. He saw Rachel, and instead of chasing or walking away, he did what few people are strong enough to do. He voiced his needs calmly and respectfully. He said, "I know you move at your own pace, and I respect that. I'm patient, and I care about you, but I also know what matters to me, and I need to know that you're willing to grow in this with me, even if it's step by step." Rachel later said that when she heard those words, she didn't feel criticized or threatened. She felt seen, understood, and for the first time, she didn't want to run. Because David wasn't forcing her out of her comfort zone, he was simply holding his ground and inviting her to meet him there. That's the key. David didn't dismiss Rachel's feelings, but he also didn't abandon his own. He was patient, but not passive, gentle, but not soft on clarity. And that's exactly why Rachel not only stayed, she started to change. She began facing her emotions. She learned not to disappear when things got intimate, not because David saved her, but because he created a space safe enough for her to save herself. And if you've ever loved an avoidant, I want you to hear this loud and clear. They can stay, they can grow, but not when you shrink to keep them. They stay when you love with boundaries, when you're secure enough not to fold in the face of distance, and clear enough not to chase potential instead of presence. What truly began to shift Rachel didn't come from one big moment, it came from David's quiet, steady consistency. The way he kept showing up, kept loving, without ever shrinking himself to preserve the connection. David understood. Avoidant behavior isn't a lack of feelings. It's feelings that are suppressed, delayed, and shielded by deep fear. He didn't react with extremes when Rachel pulled back. He didn't go silent and seethe with resentment either. Instead, whenever Rachel withdrew, especially after vulnerable or intimate moments, David would speak up gently but directly, not to control, not to guilt, but to keep the connection intact. He would say things that were honest and clear, but delivered in a tone soft enough not to feel intrusive. I know we had a great weekend, and I get that you need some space, but I also need to know we're staying connected. When's a good time for us to chat today? For avoidants, this is critical. They don't respond well to pressure, but they also don't grow if their distance is endlessly tolerated. David didn't swing to either extreme. He chose the middle ground, where presence came with boundaries. He loved without losing himself in the process. And that's what made Rachel feel safe. She wasn't forced to fix herself, but she also wasn't allowed to hide forever. David didn't indulge her defense mechanisms, but he didn't attack them either. He engaged with them from the grounded stance of a man who knew who he was, what he needed, and that real love doesn't require perfection, but it absolutely requires reciprocity. And through this rhythm, pull away, reconnect, pull away again, reconnect again. David created a new pattern for Rachel, a relationship where she didn't have to transform overnight, but couldn't stay unchanged either. A space safe enough not to trigger her, but demanding enough not to let her emotionally coast. Then something powerful began to happen. Rachel started to self-regulate. She initiated check-ins. She voiced her fears. She said, "I need a bit of time," instead of disappearing into silence. It wasn't a magical transformation. It was the result of being loved with clarity, consistency, and quiet strength. A love with limits, but not without tenderness. Many say, avoidants don't change. But the truth is, they can't change when no one around them is strong enough to not fear losing them or themselves. David didn't maintain the relationship because he was tolerant. He maintained it because he communicated skillfully. He understood that real connection doesn't live in the most intense emotional moments, it lives in the ones where you choose to stay present and engage, even when the other person is pulling away. And from Rachel and David's story, a powerful truth emerges: avoidants don't leave people who stand strong in themselves. They may walk away when they feel pressured, controlled, or when they sense that someone needs them more than they're willing to give. But when they're met with someone who's calm enough not to react, grounded enough not to chase, and clear enough not to dim their own light, they stay. Because that's someone they can respect. David didn't keep Rachel by pleasing her, coddling her, or doing everything her way. He maintained connection with her because he stayed anchored in himself, without getting swept away by her emotional tides. And that's exactly what allowed Rachel, someone used to feeling misunderstood or untethered, to finally experience stability with another person, without needing to control or retreat. This is the lesson so many people in relationships with avoidance need to hear. What keeps them close is not your patience, it's your personal power. It's when you can say, "I want connection, I need presence, but I won't lose myself to get it." Because when you communicate like that, without blame, without desperation, but with grounded clarity, you're not just building a healthier relationship, you're elevating your self-worth. You're sending a loud, clear message to the universe, to your partner, and to yourself. I deserve mutual love. And more than that, your ability to communicate this way, to express your needs, hold boundaries, and remain respectful becomes a powerful filter. It shows you who is emotionally mature and willing to grow alongside you, and who isn't. If the avoidant you love listens, responds, and slowly starts to show up differently, that's a hopeful sign. But if they respond with extended silence, constant escape, or by making you feel guilty for needing anything, then you've got your answer. You don't have to decode thousands of mixed signals. You only need one thing: consistent behavior. When you are clear and they respond with presence even imperfectly, you're with someone willing to do the work. If not, then you've just saved yourself from wasting more time, energy, and emotional value on a one-sided connection. At the end of the day, real love doesn't come from fixing someone. It comes from being fully yourself and seeing who can walk beside you in that truth. That's why relationships with avoidance don't have to be a tragedy if you enter them with strength. And if they stay, it's because you inspire them to become better, not through force, but through the way you choose to live. And if, after everything, the avoidant person you love still cannot or will not meet your clarity, your effort, and your emotional presence, then you need to understand that is not your personal failure. That is your answer. And not everyone has the courage to accept it. So don't blame yourself if you've loved sincerely, held your boundaries, communicated clearly, and were still pushed away. Real love doesn't require perfection, but it does require mutual effort. It asks for commitment, not grand promises, but small, consistent actions that show both people are walking toward each other. If you're afraid that expressing your needs, wants, and emotional boundaries might push someone away, then maybe the deeper question is this: who are you trying to hold on to, and at what cost? If a relationship only survives when you're silent, when you accept less, and when you dim your light, is that truly a relationship worth keeping? The truth is, the more honest, grounded, and self-respecting you are, if the other person retreats, that's something to be grateful for. Because you didn't lose them, you just found yourself again. Love isn't a battle to keep someone from leaving. It's a daily choice from both sides. And if someone can't choose you, even after you've chosen them with full honesty and respect, then the best thing you can do isn't to try harder, it's to stop at the right moment. Not all avoidants will walk away, but if they do, because you respected yourself, then that was exactly what needed to happen. Because real love never asks you to trade away your core values. It doesn't ask you to stay quiet when you long to be heard. It doesn't ask you to shrink to fit into someone else's fear. And never forget, when you stand firm, when you dare to say, "I need presence," when you don't retreat in the face of distance, you're not just choosing the right kind of love, you're choosing yourself. And in doing so, you send a powerful message. I don't need someone perfect. I need someone present, willing, and emotionally mature enough to walk this path with me. And if they can't, let them go. Not in anger, but in gratitude. Gratitude that you've seen the truth. Gratitude that you're no longer living in illusion or blind hope. Gratitude that you've returned to the most precious thing of all. A love that starts with you and stays with you. In the end, what you need most isn't someone who always knows what to do. It's someone who's willing to walk the journey of love with you, with sincerity, effort, and presence. Avoidant attachment isn't a life sentence, but it's also not a reason for you to sacrifice your self-respect in hopes that they'll change. You have the right to be loved without begging for it. You have the right to ask questions, express needs, set boundaries, and still be respected, still be cherished. Because real love isn't a contest to be won. It's a space where you get to be yourself fully, unapologetically, without shrinking, without needing to earn your worth. If they can't build that with you, let them go. Keep the door open, but only for those who walk in with their whole heart, full awareness, and emotional maturity. And if you're on your healing journey, your path back to yourself, I just want to say, you're doing beautifully. Every time you choose clarity over confusion, boundaries over self-abandonment, yourself over chasing, you're rewriting your entire story. I'm Jim, and thank you for staying with me through this video. If anything in this message touched your heart, please share it so more people can know. Love doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real, and it has to arrive on time.